Hi everyone, welcome to week 4 of your Capstone course. This week I have a little PowerPoint to kind of go over some key things for you. This week we're looking at pharmacy law. So a couple of things I just kind of want you to kind of keep in the back of your mind as you start going through this week's material. First of all is, why do we need to study this stuff? So why do we have to look at law? And when we think about law, it also includes things like ethics and bioethics. So what do you think about that? What are your thoughts around those? Keep in mind that some of these things are not necessarily cut and dried. I've kind of given you an example of something like that. Should an alcoholic patient who may die of liver disease be eligible for an organ transplant? So that isn't necessarily something that we have a law written about, but it does fall into that whole idea of ethics and bioethics. So all of those things are kind of wrapped up in this week's topics. And then when we talk about the legal system in general, we talk about things called torts. And there's unintentional and intentional torts. Honestly, I think most of us, when we come into the world of pharmacy or any healthcare field for that matter, we don't go in with the intent to do harm. But sometimes if there's some sort of neglect that happens, that is considered intentional because we could have done something about it. So kind of keep that in the back of your mind too as you go through talking about some of these laws. How by ignoring something is considered breaking the law. And so just like I said, the first few things that I've got in this PowerPoint are just more things for you to think about. Keep in the back of your mind. When you get ready to take the pharmacy certification test, yes, there's certain things that are cut and dried. But when you get out there in the real world, there's more gray. So kind of keep that in mind as you go in and start looking for jobs and you start interviewing and all of those types of things. Now, one thing I want you to keep in mind, this is really important because your state and the federal government have totally different requirements. The PTCB exam is a federal exam. So when you are taking that exam, everything that you're doing is related to federal law. But your state laws are going to be different. They may be the same for some things, but not for others. They may be more strict, they may not be. And when it comes down to it in practice, what you have to keep in mind is it's kind of like having two parents, right? You have mom and dad, and one's going to say no and one might say yes. So you're going to go to the one that says yes, right? So you want to keep that in mind for pharmacy too. In pharmacy, whatever's the strictest law is the one we have to follow, whether it's the federal law or the state law. However, when you're taking your PTCB exam, everything is based off of federal. So kind of keep that in the back of your mind as well. Now, the other thing I want you to pay attention to on this particular slide is, what does your particular state require as far as licensure? Some states require you just to be registered. Some require a specific type of license and specific education in order to do that. So everybody's a little bit different. So make sure that you know what is important for your state. The next topic that I want you to make sure that you are reviewing and studying for this week is all about drug classification. So drugs are classified in a lot of different ways. And it can be based on their use, their potential for abuse, what conditions they're used for. All of those different things are ways we classify different drugs. I've actually given you an example of rescheduling of hydrocodone, and by rescheduling we mean putting it in the controlled substance buckets. So we have all these different controlled substances. Things are placed into the buckets depending on their level of ability for abuse and misuse. So when we look at classifying drugs, that's just one of many ways. These are some of the different laws and things that are out there regarding that. The FDA has laws in effect, the DEA, and then of course there's the Controlled Substance Act of 1970. And then we have the Bureau of Narcotics and Dangerous Drugs. So all of these have different regulations that control controlled substances. You also need to understand the detail around the prescriptions for controlled substances. Specifically, you need to know that you have to have a DEA in order to prescribe narcotics. Also, make sure that you know how to identify a legal DEA. So you need to be able to look at that DEA number and tell, is it legit? Okay. And you need to know all of the ins and outs of controlled substances. Which ones can have refills? Which ones can't? Which ones do you have to have triplicate forms for? All that kind of stuff. And again, these are just some more things about the Schedule 2s. The other law I want you to make sure that you review this week is HIPAA. There's a lot of information around HIPAA regarding privacy that's very important. And last but not least, I've kind of gone through some of the other biggies. So you're going to see, OBRA, the Omnibus Budget Reconciliation Act. That's a big one. HIPAA is on here, the Combat Methamphetamine Act. So if you have not reviewed these, I would make sure that you do. And as with anything that you go over in any of these weeks, if you have any questions at all, please make sure that you reach out to me and let me know. And have a great week.